We're here in Portugal for the launch of Triumph's brand new Target Explorer 1200 and to have a closer look at the range. So what do I mean by range? Well, there are 6 different versions of this bike. 3 designed to excel on the road, that's the XR, the XRX and the XRT, and then 3 designed to excel off-road, that's the XC, the XCX and the XCA. The bike that we're going to be spending a bit of time with is the XCA. It's the highest spec bike in the range, and just at first glance it's absolutely covered in tech. So it's got some spoke wheels for a bit of off-road ability, electronic suspension, rocker switches everywhere for heated grips, heated seats, power sockets everywhere. So we're going to be spending a bit of time over the next couple of days getting to know this bike, doing some road riding this morning, some off-roading in the afternoon, and as if that wasn't cool enough, we've also got Charlie Borman here to be doing a bit of riding with us over the next few days. Last night we had a presentation from Triumph and it took us over an hour to get through simply because there was so much information on the bike. But one of the things that had me thinking, Jesus Christ, how am I going to remember all that stuff, is when they brought up the electronics, simply because there are so many new gizmos on this bike. So let's take a look at what this new model has. First up on the dash is the electronic windscreen. So you select that and then it basically moves to a whole range of motion on the go, at standstill, however you like. No more annoying scroller things, no more screwdrivers to move a different screen. You just simply select it and then it moves all the way up. Next up is TSAS, that's Triumph's semi-active suspension. So this bike now comes with electronic suspension and it's got various different modes. Basically, there's 9 different settings that you can move from comfort through to normal, through to sport mode, obviously, to stiffen it up. But then there's also 2 different presets for road and off-road riding, and it can all be changed on the fly simply through the switchgear. Press the mode button and it takes you to the riding mode section. There's 5 different riding modes, from rain to road, sports, off-road, and rider. Now rider is a completely manual configurable mode where you can basically change everything, but each of those modes has different settings for traction control, for ABS, for the throttle map, for the TSAS suspension. So basically you can just get on this bike and choose exactly what you want. If it's raining and you want power to be drawn in a bit, it rains it into 100 horsepower, you need a bit more traction control, you select rain mode. If you want to go off-road, that means not much traction control, you want the ABS to be on the front but off at the rear, you put it in off-road mode. You can basically select whatever mode you want for whatever condition, and then if you want your own mode, you stick it into rider, set it up, Bob's your uncle. This XCA model's also got heated grips as standard, fog lights, it's got a heated seat and a heated pillion seat that you can control with your hand on the go with a little rocker switch. There's cruise control, and then finally there's a hill hold function which works on both uphills and downhills. All you do is you roll in gear or in neutral, a little stab at the front brake and it will say hill hold activated, and what the bike does is just pinches the rear brake and holds the bike in place. So the new Target Explorer uses a revised version of the 1215cc triple engine from the old Target Explorer, but peak power and torque are up across the whole rev range. So peak power is at 138 horsepower, torque's at 91 foot-pounds, and Triumph are claiming it is the most powerful shaft drive adventure bike in its class. But how does that power, how does that torque translate on the road? Well, it just makes it such a tractable beast. I rode its baby brother last week, the Tiger 800, and compared to that, in a straight line to 100 miles an hour, I actually reckon both bikes would be fairly similar. I don't think the 1200 would be that much faster, but where it benefits, it is tractable nature. So stick it in 4th gear, it will run from 10 miles an hour to over 100 with absolutely no qualms from the motor at all. For a 1200, it's not as torquey as I expected it to be, but there's loads of mid-range. Benefit of that kind of high top end is that you have to rev it out. And when you rev it out, you get to hear the amazing exhaust note from that new cam. When you combine the engine with things like the new aerodynamics, stuff like those winglets which help deflect wind off the rider's body, the tank range, the comfortable riding position, the comfortable seat, those are the ingredients of a great adventure bike, something you can sit on all day long and not get tired. We've done about 200, 250 miles today. I genuinely reckon I could do that all over again and not be bored, not be tired, and definitely not be uncomfortable. Triumph have made a massive effort to improve the quality and finish of the product. So there's wet painted engine covers, there's a black crinkle effect on the crankcases, the titanium powder coating on the frame. It just looks built to last, which is a good thing given that this bike is supposed to take you across continents. Right, so it's day 2, we've had some time to digest our dinner, have a bit of sleep, and take in everything new that this bike has to offer. So today we're going to be putting it through its paces off-road. Nothing too gnarly, just some kind of wet, muddy trails. But it has been raining here in Faro for the last week, so it's going to be pretty slippery out there. And then this afternoon, that's when we're meeting up with Charlie Borman, who's going to show us how it's done off-road, because he's pretty badass on a motorbike. Put this bike next to the old Tiger Explorer and the changes might not seem immediately noticeable, but there are a load of improvements both above and beneath the surface. For one thing, this bike totally defies its weight. At 258 kilos, it's the heaviest bike in the off-road and road range, and yet somehow it manages to tiptoe between corners with agility, precision, stability, and a lot of that is thanks to the changes that Triumph have made to the geometry. So they've steepened the head angle, there's less trail, they've revised the weight distribution, and they've moved the seat forward by about 20 mils to make it more comfortable to ride, but also to help put the rider's weight over the front wheel, which is obviously going to help you turn the bike in faster. Speaking of that 258 kilo dry weight, that is what puts a lot of people off adventure bikes. You know, they're big, they're heavy, they're tall. I'm 5'11", and I can only just get my feet flat on the ground. And so Triumph's offering a low seat height option on the XRX and the XCX models. But it's not just a low seat, they've changed the frame of the bike. So you get the best of both worlds, really. So just had lunch. We were going to be heading out with Charlie Borman, but it transpires that a car driver has kindly turned in front of him, so that is now a no-go. But instead, we're going to be heading out with one of the test riders and Kevin Carmichael, who's Triumph's in-house stunt rider. So I've heard he's pretty damn good on the bike, so we're going to put the bike through its paces off-road and see if I can keep up. Right, so we've just done some off-roading, and so far the electronics have been really impressive, both on the road and off of it. Just earlier on, had a bit of a sideways moment, traction control kicked in, I was still sideways, throttle fully open, but it saved my arse, definitely. And also just coming down here, I thought I was in rider mode, which is the configurable setting with traction control setting turned off, ABS turned off, and it was only when it went a bit sideways and the TC kicked in that I realised I was actually in off-road mode. So it does let you have a bit of a play around, it does let you get sideways. Now the traction control runs off a 6-axis gyro system, which measures pitch, roll, yaw, and then there's 3 accelerometers as well. So it's constantly measuring what the bike is doing, how sideways it is, what the lean angle's like, the tyre spin, how fast you're going. And when you combine that with the cornering ABS, those really grippy Metzler tyres, and things like the shaft drive, you just end up with this really capable, practical and safe machine. I think if I could change a few things, I'd like the heated grips and the heated seats to get a bit hotter than they do. Secondly, with so many electronics on this bike, it almost highlights the lack of a quick shifter on it. And then thirdly, I like the brakes to be a bit stronger. They're the same Brembo calipers off the Ducati Panigale 959 Superbike, so they're totally adequate, but sometimes it's just a bit nicer to have more than what you actually need, especially on a bike that weighs 260 kilos. Other than those minor niggles, this bike is super impressive, and it definitely holds its own alongside bikes like the BMW R1200 GS and the KTM Adventure to make the adventure class even more competitive than it already is. So if you do fancy one of these, they start at $11,800 for the XR model, which comes with cast wheels, and £12,200 for the XC model, and you get them in blue, white, black, red, khaki green. Obviously those prices do go up if you start opting for the X, the T and the A models, which come with all the electronic gizmos. I have to say it's quite fitting having had Charlie Borman here for the last few days, because ever since watching him and Ewan McGregor go around the world on Long Way Round 10 or so years ago, it's obviously been a bit of a dream of mine, like many bikers, to do a round the world trip. And I have to say, this bike is definitely fighting for a spot in my top dream round the world bike list.